Welcome, everyone, to Monday Momentum. And today we're going to be talking about mid year growth, mid year review. The questions I want you to be thinking about or asking yourself is, where are you? Where do you want to be? Where are you going to? Those are the questions that I want to just be, ruminating, percolating, like running through your mind. But the truth is that more than kind of half the year has flown by, right? And the real truth about that is that some of us are right where we hoped we wanted to be. So that means we're crushing it, we're doing well. And some of us are not even close to that trajectory. And this is not about judgment. Let's throw that out the door. This is more about awareness, like really thinking about where am I? Where am I going to? And you have to know where you are. And you also need to know where you're heading to in order to fully reflect and grow. Like if you don't have a clear understanding and a clear grasp on all of those things, I think that you wouldn't even have the opportunity to do a real mid-year review. And what I want to kind of help us understand is that momentum, right, is not about sprinting nonstop. So momentum is not just going, 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 going. It's not that. Momentum is actually also knowing when to pause, but more importantly, when to pivot and then how to progress. And today we're going to explore really how to realign, how to reset, how to reignite your vision, and how you think about kind of the next 5 or 6 months as we wrap up the year. Where are you in your growth trajectory? Where are you in your plans? Where are you heading? What does it mean if you need to pivot? And that's not necessarily a bad thing. So I want to take a second and talk about, the power of pausing. What does that really mean? If you think about like the best of the best athletes, right? Those superstars, right? They don't train every single day at 100%. Recovery is actually part of their process, right? And even as we do reps, I think every Monday Momentum, I'm going to try to include reps into what we're talking about. But even like when we, as you're strengthening your muscles, right, like, and you keep doing strength training, the goal is to fatigue the muscles in order for them to grow, but then they need a recovery period, right, where you don't just let out a ton of you don't let out a ton of steam, but you need time to really really recover. So if in that pause period, right, maybe you could ask yourself, like, what would I change if I gave myself permission to pause instead of just like pushing blindly, right? Instead of just going, 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 that hamster wheel that never stops. What would it look like if you gave yourself permission to pause? And it's not just pause and let months go by. It's pausing uh, for the need to, to then move forward with progress, right? It's pausing to reflect. It's pausing to realign. I think that's the importance of pausing. So that's something that you kind of like need to think about, right? For me, right, if I had to pause right now and I kind of needed to reflect on where I am, I would focus on the three big things that I need to do every single day to move the needle forward in the areas of my life that need significant growth. Like if I had to say, maybe for me personally, if this wasn't going the way that I wanted it to go, right? And let's say the year hasn't gone according to plan, if I pause right now, I think for me, that's what I would do. I would figure out what are the three big things that I need to be doing every day to move us forward. So, in terms of thinking through like maybe a practical step or a next step, right? I want you to ask yourself, what's working? What's draining me? You guys know that I'm big on journaling, but I think maybe in order for you to figure that out, you might even have to ask yourself, maybe write down three things that you're proud of from the first half, and three things that you would let go of or you wouldn't push anymore, or you just realize these things are not serving me well, they're not working, I gotta pivot, right? In that season of pausing, or um, in that time of pausing, then you can reflect on that. That's what I think about when I think about pausing. It's pausing with intention on how you're going to move forward. And then the next thing I would say is pivot, right? And when we think about pivoting, sometimes we think about it as failing, because you're leaving something in order to move towards something different because that something is not working. And I don't want you to think about it like that, right? I want you to think about it more of, I want you to kind of think about it more in terms of reflecting on those people who have pivoted. What has it done for them, right? If you think about businesses, right? Because I think about everything maybe from the lens of business and entrepreneurship, but there's a lot of businesses that I can think of: Netflix, Amazon. They're very successful, right? Not because they had like that perfect plan, not because they knew exactly what they wanted to do, but because they pivoted at the right time, right? So something wasn't really working. Like if you think about it, like Amazon was built on like books, right? And that's not the Amazon we know today. And they pivoted and look at where they are, right? Netflix was different. Like in that blockbuster era, like Netflix was different. Like I remember, this is maybe dating my age, but I remember when like you could pick up Netflix from like stores, right? Like convenience stores or grocery stores, or like, all things, pharmacies as well. Like you could pick up Netflix from there. And look at where it is today, right? Yeah, Redbox. Thank you. So those are the things that, like, you think about those people, they needed to pivot. If not, they would have died. But they pivoted and they grew, and then they thrived. So that's what I want you to think about when I want you to think about pivoting. It's not a failure. Think about it as wisdom, doing it at the right time. I would say, if you ask yourself this, right? Like, if nothing changed in my current trajectory, like where I'm going right now, where will I be in 6 months? Does that excite you or does that scare you? And I want you to, every time I come here and we talk about kind of some of the experiences, I want to use some personal experiences so that you get an understanding of what I'm thinking about, right? I'll give you a real life example in Phoenix right now, right? We are having a big meeting coming up this week. And it's because we want to think about, how are things going? Like, if we want a different result, right, then we have to start asking ourselves different questions or thinking differently. And so this meeting that we're having this week is really thinking through what's working, what's not working, what do we need to let go of, how do we need to grow, how do we need to pivot, what do we need to change in what we're doing so that we can get a different result, right? And so this is a clear example of like pivoting with intention. That's what it looks like. So as we come together to think through, like, what are we doing? How are we growing personally? How are we growing professionally? All of that is thinking about how we can grow. So I would say, as you're thinking next steps, right? Or how do you crush the rest of the year? What are, maybe identify the things that are stealing the most energy with the least amount of returns. What does that look like? What is the thing that you're doing that is draining physical time, emotional energy, mental energy, but like you're not getting anything in return? It's probably time to kind of pivot. And I think I got the question asked last week, right? Like, when is the right time? When would the right time be to pivot? I think it's that if you're asking yourself some of these questions and the answers are not favorable, right? Then maybe it's time to pivot. Go back to your vision, go back to your mission, go back to your goals, and think about, is what I'm doing right now aligned with that? Does it help me get closer to my goal, to my vision, to my mission, to the people I'm serving? That's what you have to think about. And then I would say, like, the final thing I would say is, maybe do something small. So like pivots are not giant leaps, right? Sometimes it might be changing one thing, and don't think about it like this total overhaul of your life or your business or like whatever your side hustle. Maybe just do one thing like that's intentional in how you shift. I think that that would kind of help you think through pivoting, not as this big daunting thing, but maybe a small shift that you can do to move you forward. And then as you think about progress, right? I think to me, that's in thinking about where I am, month 7, month 8, how do I want to end the year? I think that I want to focus a lot on progress. And Winston Churchill said this famous quote. He said, "Success is not final, and failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. It's the courage to keep going every single day." That's what matters, right? When I think about growth, growth is not about like giant leaps. It's not about like, I think about like long jump and like just leaping across the field. That is one type of growth, but that's not the only type of growth that really matters. For me, I think that the growth that matters is that consistent, compounding steps, the everyday thing that you do. It's about grinding, and pounding the pavement. Like, you are putting in the work, you're doing the thing that you need in order for you to grow. I think that's what growth looks like. It's small, it's consistent, it's showing up every day, it's rolling out of bed, it's putting on your sneakers, it's going for that run, it's reviewing the business plan, it is making the calls, like those hard things where you're like, oh my gosh, I have to call another broker, I have to call another investor, I have to call another client. Like, that's doing the work, right? Those are the things. That's when you see the progress, right? When you look at people, you look at your peers or people who are in the same field that are doing the same thing, and you're like, how are they crushing it? Like, how are they growing? They are doing, if you're putting in 10%, they're putting in 90%. And that 90% is getting them the result, right? So if you want that, then do the thing that you need to do. Do the thing every single day that you need to do to get the result that you want. So I would say reframe how you think about progress, right? Progress is not perfection. It's not getting it right. It's not a giant leap. It's just forward movement every single day, no matter how small it is, right? So, and sometimes, right, I keep saying this, and I am also talking to myself because I struggle with this, but it's reflect on the wins. Even if it's like a win from last week, right? Well, reflect on that to help you gain some more momentum, to help you continue on the path of progress, right? Just think about one small win from last week, whatever it is, but remind yourself of that. Think about that and then celebrate that, right? Because that's the impetus that you need to kind of push yourself forward, right? That's the next step that you need to take in order to be like, okay, I'm waking up Monday morning and I'm going to crush this week, right? This is going to be the momentum that I need. No kidding, Monday momentum, that we need to like continue to keep going, continue to push forward. That's what that looks like, right? So as we kind of think about closing, I want you to think about a mid-year checkpoint. I want you to think about this like mid-year or this 8-month checkpoint, right? As Don't think about it as like guilt, right? Don't think about it as like, man, I didn't do this, I didn't do that. I want you to think about it more from a growth perspective, right? Take the time, right now to pause, take the time to reflect and pausing with the intention of what do I need to do differently? Well, how do I need to grow? How do I need to change? How do I need to course correct? Right. And then when you do that, you're going to pivot when necessary. That pivot is small, it's not big. Now, if there's something jarring and glaring that you need to be like, okay, this is really not working, we need to course correct, then do that. But if not, right, you're pivoting at the necessary time. After you've used your time to reflect and to pause, and you realize this is the right time, and then you pivot. It is from that pivoting that you then progress with renewed clarity, with a new mindset, with a new kind of new head on your shoulders, right? About where you're going, about the changes that you need to make. So I would say, right, as we think about this week and as we think about the rest of the year, as we think about looking at this mid year review, I would challenge you, right? Write down one thing that you're going to commit to for the next 30 days. Just that's it. That's one thing that you're either going to help you pause or pivot, or one thing that you're going to do that you're going to commit to help you on the path of progress. Do that and see what that looks like. Maybe share it with your team, share it with your accountability partner. I will just say, I want you to give yourself the permission to continue to evolve on this journey of growth, on this journey of wanting to create an expansive life, a bigger life, a life of impact, a life that is filled with purpose and direction, right? Think about what that could look like if you gave yourself permission to evolve, to continue to grow, to continue to think, to continue to change for the better. So that's where I'll stop. And I want to say thank you for coming this morning. I'm going to jump and see if there are any questions, but let's also take this conversation into the community, right? This is how we grow into circle. This is how we grow. This is how we think about what we're doing. This is truly the path to progress, the path to growth. You can't do it alone. And it involves linking arms with others. It involves growth. So that's where I'll stop. But just take the time to think about what this year has looked like for you, and really where you can grow, where you can pivot, where you can start progressing, where you can be more consistent, where you can show up and then pivot when necessary. So if there are no questions, we will wrap up. But if you have any questions, just toss it in the chat. Or if you are curious what this could look like, toss it in the chat. But yeah, but the goal is, at the end of the day, the goal is, what am I doing differently? If what I'm doing right now is not working, what do I need to do differently in order to grow, in order to progress? I think that that's the most important thing. And I think that's what we need to be thinking about. You're welcome. Yes, I agree. It's a timely reminder. And it's something that we need to remind ourselves about, because some people feel like the year started, I didn't meet some of my goals, and now I just need to, like, I failed. Let me just continue each day as it brings. But I don't think that's necessarily true. I think that if you make the decision to pause and to reflect and to pivot and to progress, and I think those things are important. Perfect. Writing down my plans to know when and how to pivot. I love it. If you need to. And I think one more person was writing, thank you. Halfway through the year, met some goals, have not met some. And that's okay. Like, that's okay. This road that we're on, remember, progress is not perfection. We're not aiming for perfection. We are aiming for growth. And that looks messy and that looks lopsided. And it looks like win some, lose some, but you just continue to do it. And then when you look back, you'll see really the trajectory. You'll see the course. You'll see how much you've grown. Okay. I'll give you back 1 minute of your time, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your Monday and rest of the week. Let's go crush it. Let's rethink how we're doing in terms of pausing, in terms of pivoting, and then how we can make progress.